Welcome to Deep Dive. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you here. Let's dive in and grow together.
Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a really interesting book called India, Bharat and Pakistan, The Constitutional Journey of a Sandwiched Civilization. We're going to be focusing on the years 1740 to 1898. Yeah, a period that's often overlooked, but it's absolutely crucial for understanding the history of the Indian subcontinent. We often hear about the British divide and rule policy as the main cause of tensions between Hindus and Muslims, ultimately leading to the partition of India. But this book, it throws a real curveball at that narrative. It argues that there were powerful movements advocating for Islamic rule in India, and get this, these movements existed long before the British even arrived on the scene. To fully grasp this, we need to understand what was happening in the 18th century. So the Mughal Empire, once this mighty force, it was crumbling. This created a power vacuum, and groups like the Marathas and the Sikhs, they started gaining prominence. Now just imagine you're a Muslim intellectual at this time. The shifting power dynamics are unsettling, to say the least. You're witnessing the decline of a Muslim-led empire and the rise of new powers. It's no wonder that anxieties about the future of Islam in the subcontinent began to spread, and that's where Shah Waliullah Dehlawi enters the picture. Now, this Islamic scholar, he was a visionary, calling for a return to pure Islam and advocating for the establishment of an Islamic state in India. Dehlawi's writings and teachings had a massive ripple effect, really inspiring a wave of Islamic movements that followed. One of the most intriguing things about Dehlawi is his concept of two caliphates, one spiritual and one temporal. It's remarkably similar to the two kingdoms theory that emerged from the Protestant Reformation in Europe around the same time. Makes you wonder about the interconnectedness of ideas across different cultures, doesn't it? But Dehlawi's ideas weren't just theoretical. They gave rise to some significant Islamic revivalist movements. Think of the Faraizi movement in Bengal and the Wahhabi movement in Delhi. These groups gained serious momentum, their goals, while reviving Islamic practices, resisting British rule, and in some cases, even establishing Islamic rule. One of the key figures leading this charge was Syed Ahmad and Barelvi. He took Dehlawi's vision and really ran with it, traveling across India, preaching a return to Orthodox Islam. He even actively advocated for jihad against the Sikhs in Punjab. Talk about a powerful figure. But Barelvi wasn't just about fiery speeches, he was a strategist. He helped build up the Wahhabi network, which was incredibly sophisticated for its time. Imagine a shadow state operating in the northwest frontier province, with its own communication systems, organizational structures, even laws. That's what the Wahhabis created. Naturally, the British weren't exactly thrilled about this development. They saw the Wahhabis as a major threat to their authority, and responded with military expeditions to try and crush the movement. They even introduced the law of sedition in 1870, specifically designed to target the Wahhabis. This really shows how seriously they took this challenge. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The British attempts to suppress these movements, it actually had an unintended consequence. All the attention on the Wahhabis ended up attracting even more sympathizers within the Muslim community. At the same time, though, the term Wahhabi became a legal liability, a red flag that could land you in trouble with the authorities. So what happened? A whole bunch of new movements emerged, all inspired by Dehlawi, but each with its own distinct flavor. We're talking of groups like the Ali Hadith, the Deobandis, the Barelvis again, the Nadwa, and the Aligarh movement, just to name a few. It's as if Dehlawi's ideas were seeds that sprouted into this incredibly diverse and complex garden of Islamic thought. Now, out of all these movements, the Aligarh movement, it really stands out. It was founded by Syed Ahmad Khan, and it took a very different approach. Instead of outright rejecting Western influence, the Aligarh movement, they believed in combining Western education with Islamic teachings. His focus seemed to be more on securing Muslim interests, specifically within India. Remember, Khan viewed the British as a necessary ally, a way to balance the growing influence of Hindus. He even went so far as to argue that Muslims and Christians, both being people of the book, had a natural affinity, a shared religious foundation that made them more compatible than Hindus and Muslims. This perspective really shines through in his efforts to promote Western education among Muslims. He founded the Aligarh Scientific Society and later the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, both aiming to blend Western learning with Islamic teachings. Khan truly believed this was the key to Muslim success in the modern world. It was about gaining the knowledge and skills needed to regain their rightful place in society. He saw Aligarh as a Muslim arsenal for India, a training ground for future leaders equipped to fight for Muslim rights and interests. But Aligarh wasn't just about academics. Khan envisioned it as a space for Muslims from all walks of life, regardless of sect or background, to come together and forge a shared identity. It was about building a strong, unified Muslim community capable of standing up for itself in a world undergoing rapid change. Their goal was to create a new generation of Muslim leaders who could navigate the modern world without compromising their Islamic identity. They aimed to equip these leaders with the knowledge and skills necessary to reclaim their rightful place in society. But a turning point came with the 1857 mutiny. He witnessed how the British treated Muslims in the aftermath of the uprising. And this experience, coupled with his deeply held Dehlawi beliefs, it seems to have shifted his perspective. It was around this time that he began articulating what we now know as the two-nation theory. The idea that Hindus and Muslims are distinct nations and cannot coexist peacefully in one country. This was a groundbreaking concept, especially considering we're talking decades before the actual creation of Pakistan. We can see here the seeds being planted, the intellectual foundation for a separate Muslim state starting to form. Khan became a vocal critic of a unified Hindu-Muslim nation. He was convinced that in a democratic system, the Hindu majority would inevitably dominate the Muslim minority. His solution: he called for separate Muslim representation, a concept that would profoundly alter the political landscape of the subcontinent. But even within the Islamic world, there were different visions for the future. Enter Jamal al-Din al-Afghani, a charismatic pan-Islamic thinker. He advocated for a global Islamic revival, urging Muslims worldwide to unite and reclaim their past glory. And here's where we see a fascinating clash of ideas. Afghani actually criticized Syed Ahmed Khan for his loyalty to the British. He believed that true Islamic revival could only come through self-reliance, not collaboration with colonial powers. He envisioned a broader, more international movement that transcended the borders of India. What we're seeing here is the emergence of two distinct yet intertwined strands of thought. One, championed by Syed Ahmed Khan, focused on securing Muslim interests within India. The other, led by Afghani, sought to ignite a global Islamic revival. Both of these perspectives would contribute significantly to the events that unfolded in the years to come. Now, what's really interesting is that Afghani actually spent time in India interacting with key figures like Syed Ahmed Khan and his followers. But here's where things get a little complicated. Even though both men were committed to the advancement of Islam, they had very different visions for how to achieve that goal. Afghani was all about pan-Islamism, this grand vision of a global Muslim community transcending national borders. He saw the struggle against Western colonialism as a unifying force that could bring Muslims together from all corners of the world. He believed in the power of the caliphate, the idea of a single leader uniting the Muslim world under one banner. This was about more than just India. It was about reclaiming the lost glory of Islam and establishing its dominance on a global scale. Syed Ahmed Khan, on the other hand, was more pragmatic, more focused on securing Muslim interests within India. Remember, he saw the British as a necessary evil, a temporary ally in the fight against Hindu dominance. He was willing to work within the colonial system using Western education and political strategies to advance the Muslim cause. But for Afghani, this was a form of appeasement, a betrayal of the true spirit of Islam. He criticized Khan's loyalty to the British and argued that Muslims should be fighting for their own independent state, free from any foreign influence. He believed that true Islamic revival could only come through self-reliance, not through collaboration with colonial powers. So you can see how these two competing visions created real tension within the Muslim community. On one hand, you had Khan's two-nation theory, arguing for a separate Muslim state within India. On the other hand, you had Afghani's pan-Islamism, this grand vision of a global Islamic uprising. But here's the thing, even though these ideas seem to be at odds with each other, they actually ended up reinforcing each other. Khan's focus on Muslim identity and separatism paved the way for the idea of Pakistan. And Afghani's fiery rhetoric about Islamic unity and resistance to Western imperialism provided the emotional and spiritual fuel for the movement. It was like a perfect storm, these two different strands of thought coming together at just the right time to create this unstoppable force. And the British, with their divide and rule tactics, only added fuel to the fire. By playing Hindus and Muslims against each other, they inadvertently created the conditions for the two-nation theory to flourish. So what does this all mean? What can we learn from this deep dive into such a pivotal period? Well, first of all, it's a reminder that history is rarely black and white. There are often multiple perspectives, competing narratives, and complex forces at play. What might seem like a simple story of British colonialism is actually far more nuanced. There were internal struggles within the Muslim community, different visions for the future, and powerful personalities driving the narrative. Second, it's clear that the seeds of Pakistan were planted long before 1947. This wasn't just a sudden event that came out of nowhere. It was the culmination of centuries of intellectual and religious ferment. The ideas of Delhi Barelvi Khan and Afghani, combined with British policies and the changing political landscape, created the perfect conditions for this new nation to emerge. And finally, it's a reminder that ideas have power. The things people write, the speeches they give, the movements they lead, these can have a profound impact on the course of history. The story of India, Bharat and Pakistan is a testament to this truth. It's a story of how ideas combined with political will and historical circumstances can reshape the world we live in. I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on this crucial period in history. If you're interested in learning more, I highly encourage you to check out India, Bharat and Pakistan, the constitutional journey of a sandwiched civilization. It's a fascinating and thought-provoking read that will challenge your assumptions and deepen your understanding of this complex and fascinating region. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring the hidden depths of history.